What if everything you've been taught about failure is wrong? What if I told you that the very thing you're afraid of, the thing that keeps you awake at night, holding you back from your dreams, is actually the key to achieving everything you've ever wanted? Think about it. We spend so much time avoiding failure, running from it, hiding from it, and even pretending it doesn't exist. But here is the twist. The people who achieve extraordinary success don't run from failure, they embrace it. Let's start with a story. Picture this: a young man named Thomas Edison sitting in a dimly lit workshop, surrounded by scraps of wire and broken glass. His neighbors think he's lost it. His colleagues tell him to give up. Why? Because he's failed not once, not twice, but over 10,000 times. And yet, Edison isn't discouraged. When someone asks him how he deals with all these failures, he responds with a smile. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That mindset changed the world. Without those 10,000 failures, we wouldn't have the light bulb. This story isn't unique to Edison. Think about J.K. Rowling, who was rejected by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, or Steven Spielberg, who was rejected from film school 3 times. These stories show us something incredible. Failure isn't just part of the journey to success, it is the very foundation of it. But why don't we talk about it more? Why do we hide our failures like they're something to be ashamed of? Today, I'm not just going to show you why failure isn't your enemy. I'm going to show you how it can become your greatest ally, the force that pushes you forward when everything else seems to hold you back. By the end of this video, you'll see failure in a completely new light. So why failure feels so terrifying? Before we dive into the benefits of failure, let's talk about why we fear it so much. Fear of failure is universal, but it's also deeply personal. Why does it feel so overwhelming? The first is the stories we tell ourselves. From a young age, many of us are taught that failure equals weakness. Think back to school. A red F on a test didn't just feel like a bad grade. It felt like a label. Society has conditioned us to believe that failing means we're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. This mindset sticks with us as adults. Every time we face the possibility of failures, it triggers those old fears. What if I'm not enough? What if people see me as a failure? The fear of judgment. Let's be honest, most of us care about what other people think. When we fail, we don't just fear the consequences of the failure itself. We fear how others will perceive us. Will they think we're incompetent? Will they laugh behind our backs? This fear of judgment can paralyze us, keeping us from taking the risks we need to grow. The illusion of perfection. Social media hasn't made this any easier. We scroll through the highlight reels of people's lives, seeing their promotions, vacations, and accomplishments, but rarely their struggles. It is easy to feel like everyone else is winning while we're the only ones stumbling. But here's the truth: no one's life is perfect. Behind every success story, there is struggle and often a series of failures that no one talks about. Failure feels final. One of the biggest reasons we fear failure is that it feels like the end of the road. When something doesn't work out, we think, that's it, I've blown my chance. But failure is rarely final. It's a detour, not a dead end. Understanding these fears is the first step toward overcoming them. Because once you see that fear is just a story your mind is telling you, you can start rewriting that story. Let's talk about my personal journey through failure. Let me share a personal story. A few years ago, I was working on a deal that I believed would change everything. I poured months into it, researching, strategizing, and pitching. I was so sure it would succeed that I had already started planning what I'd do afterward. And then it all fell apart. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at the email that said, "We have decided to go in a different direction." I felt crushed. All that effort, all these late nights, it felt like it was for nothing. For days, I let that failure consume me. I started doubting myself. Did I aim too high? Should I have stuck to smaller goals? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. But as I reflected, I realized something. That failure wasn't the end. It was a lesson. It showed me where I had gaps in my strategy, where I needed to improve. So I picked myself up, refined my approach, and tried again. A year later, I closed a deal that was even bigger than the one I lost. And I realized without that initial failure, I never would have grown into the person who could achieve that success. Now, let's talk about what failure teaches us. Now that we've unpacked why we fear failure, let's explore what it can teach us. Because here's the incredible part, failure is one of the life's greatest teachers. Failure builds resilience. Think of failure like lifting weights. The first time you try to lift something heavy, it feels impossible. But each time you try, your muscle gets stronger. Failure works the same way. It forces you to push through discomfort, to pick yourself up and try again. And over time, it builds resilience, making you stronger and more capable of handling challenges. Here is an example. Michael Jordan, arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time, was cut from his high school basketball team. Can you imagine if he'd given up right then? Instead, he used that failure as motivation to work harder. He famously said, "I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games. I have failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Failure fuels innovation. Some of the most groundbreaking inventions came from failures. Did you know that the adhesive on post-it notes was originally a failed attempt to create a super strong glue? Instead of scrapping the idea, the inventors pivoted and created a product used by millions every day. Failure forces you to think differently. When one approach doesn't work, it pushes you to find new solutions, sparking creativity and innovation. Failure reveals what truly matters. When you fail, it forces you to ask tough questions. Why am I doing this? Is this really what I want? Those questions can bring clarity, helping you reconnect with your purpose. Sometimes failure helps you realize that the path you're on isn't the right one. And that's okay, it's all part of growth. Failure is the ultimate feedback loop. Every failure comes with a lesson. If you're willing to look for it, maybe you didn't prepare enough, maybe your strategy wasn't right, or maybe you were too focused on pleasing others instead of staying true to yourself. Whatever the case, failure gives you valuable feedback to help you improve. Now, how to embrace failure? So, how do you actually embrace failure? It's one thing to understand its benefits, but it's another to face it head on without letting it crush your confidence. Here are some practical steps to make failure your greatest motivator. Reframe your mindset. Stop thinking of failure as a personal flaw. Instead, see it as a necessary step in the learning process. Every successful person has failed, often more than once. The difference is they didn't let those failures stop them. Here's an exercise. The next time you fail, write down 3 things you learned from the experience. This simple act of reflection can shift your focus from what went wrong to what you can improve. Celebrate the effort, not just the outcome. Too often we focus only on results, but success isn't just about the end goal, it's about the journey. Celebrate the fact that you had the courage to try, even if things didn't work out as planned. Surround yourself with resilient people. Find role models who have overcome failure. Read their stories, watch their interviews, and let their resilience inspire you. When you see that failure didn't stop them, it will remind you that it doesn't have to stop you either. Start small and build confidence. If fear of failure feels overwhelming, start with small risks. Push yourself outside your comfort zone in manageable ways. Each small victory will build your confidence, making it easier to tackle bigger challenges. Create a plan for handling failure. Before you take a risk, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Then create a plan for how you'll handle it if things don't go as expected. Knowing you have a backup plan can make failure feel less intimidating. Now let's bring this back to you. What's the dream or goal you've been putting off because you're afraid to fail? Maybe it's starting a business, pursuing a passion, or even having a tough conversation. Here's my challenge. Take one small step toward that goal today. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be big, but it has to be something. And if you stumble along the way, don't see it as a reason to stop. See it as proof that you're trying, that you're learning and growing. I want to hear from you. What's a failure you've experienced and what did you learn from it? Share your story in the comments. Let's start a conversation because the more we talk about failure, the less power it has over us. If this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I post content every week to inspire and empower you on your journey to success. And if you're ready for more, check out my next video where we dive into a different topic. Together, we'll keep pushing past fear and toward growth. Remember, failure isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of something incredible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.